lot of responsibility to bring that engagement, right? And I think Dr. Batra, while in his last 2 minutes, set the context on how I wanted to start my conversation. And Tushar has just been introduced. So I want to ask you, Tushar, about profitability, right? Because that's the burning question that is there in minds of all D2C entrepreneurs, as well as your venture investors, right? How are you looking at profitability? And just to give you perspective to everyone, Perfora is a very new brand, right? I'll let Tushar speak more about it. Yeah, Tushar.
No, I think great question, and really early on, so Jatra and I, we both come from family of businessmen. We've both seen our fathers toil hard, and so we understand that profits and business, they have to go in hand and go together. The reason we took the approach that we took, and I think there are a few memes even on our Shark Tank airing, is that we spoke a lot about being the first new age, being the first new age. I think there are just certain times where you need to invest ahead to solidify your communication or to get your point across. But having said that, when we look back at our business and we look at the unit metrics for every new customer that we're acquiring, are we selling him more than what we are giving to sort of get him to us? Do we have enough products in the portfolio to make it happen? So yeah, I know like it's all about sustainability and profitability today, but we've been focusing on it since day zero, and hence which is why also the partnership really on retention.
Coming to your experience at Shark Tank, right? And we all know that the stories of Shark Tank have been that suddenly your CAC becomes zero, right? And now that obviously your budgets on performance get released, right? And you have like people who are coming, exploring, and these 3 months become the most important for you, like in your entire journey. How are you looking at building the entire retention story over here? Because you've got the customers, but how do you ensure that they're coming back? So what's the thought process around retention?
Absolutely, no, I think Shark Tank is a great avenue to not just go to the sharks and pitch, but to also pitch to the entire country that you're trying to build something, you're trying to do something fresh and new for them. Absolutely, I think the CPCs, the customer acquisition cost, because you get them excited to try something, so that really goes down. And for a new age business like us, it's amazing. But then it comes down that will you still have this 2 months later when it all wanes off? You would have acquired a customer, but is he happy with the way you delivered the product to him? The way you communicated with him? Were you able to match the right products with the right customer? Because he would have probably come in looking at an electric toothbrush, but he's probably being seen the toothpaste or the mouthwash again and again. I mean, that's just an example. But ensuring that we've had all of this in place to make the max of this was super important. So which is why even before we were sort of preempting, we had certain flows on the website, we had certain communications in place to ensure that matching was going on. Now that we have these customers in different ways, some of them have already transacted with us, some of them are probably within our funnel that we can communicate more with them, sort of retarget to them. The idea is that we want to try and understand all of them with a lot more depth. The team internally looks at like a lot of metrics as to how are these people transacting or interacting with the brand. Do they want more information from us? Do they want more products? Will they buy very frequently, or is it just one of an additional product for them? Is it the mainstay for them? So using a lot of that to figure out, and we look at simple metrics, whether how recently have they transacted with us, how frequently are they transacting with us, and then we're able to put them into buckets of category A, category B, category C. And then similarly, the way you're going to write emails to them, the sort of WhatsApp communication that's going to go to them, and how you're going to fine tune the copy or what you're going to pitch there. I think so, yeah, that's absolutely key. We have all of that in motion, and yeah, we're looking at all of that to ensure that this influx of people who've bought into the Perfora promise sort of continue to stay there.
Yeah. So we've been working with Perfora for last almost 6 to 8 months, and something very interesting which I want to highlight over here is that most of the D2C brands, they start doing this retention strategy, maybe 1 or 2 years after the launch, right? Because the first focus is always on acquisition, right? But Perfora, I think, took a call very early in their days. I think in the 2nd or 3rd month of the distribution, I think they decided that retention is going to be very important, which means a customer who's come, how do you engage? Yeah. So how did that thought process got built into the entire business strategy, getting this kind of strategy very early in your days? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I mean, who was the who convinced you, or who was, whether it was you or your co-founder? Where did this thought came?
Oh, great. So one was, of course, the category that we're in. It's a daily use product. Month on month, you need to buy again and again. So we knew that, and anyways, the incumbents are so strong. So like galti se, if we find somebody who's like, okay, let me give these guys a shot, we want to ensure that we're able to keep getting him to come back. So that was one important metric, that if we get a customer, and looking at even like when we started selling, it was August 2021. CACs was still through the roof. It was just post-COVID, and D2C was booming. So it was important for us that whichever customer we bring into the ecosystem, we're able to retarget and communicate them again with them. I think the second key thing was one of our team members, Rishti. She comes with a little bit of D2C background, and she was very bullish on wanting to use like a centralized place where we can communicate with customers, send emails, and have like a lot of data tracking that we can do. Because qualitatively, you might think that I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Is it working? Is it not working? But when you have numbers to match up to that, it sort of works beautifully together. So I think these two were typically the strong reasons where we were sure that retention marketing is something we want to invest in. And of course, I think WebEngage at the time also ran a great cohort where the financial aspect we did not really have to worry about. So yeah, we got a great deal.
Yeah. And what would be those North Star metrics that you are tracking for the overall business? I understand that profitability is something, but considering early age, that is not something that you can achieve in, let's say, first or second year. But on a, let's say, quarter on quarter, month on month, what are those North Star metrics that you track as an organization?
So, profitability and top line and how the growth is going is, of course, the larger theme that you want to look at. But on a month-on-month basis, to really know whether what we're putting out, will it survive, like, say, 10, 15 years, or it's just going to pop out in like a year or two. The lot of month-on-month retention metrics, of course, see, the overarching theme is NPS. We track that very diligently on a monthly basis. Today also, we're roughly in like the 55 to 60 range. Of course, can be much better, but it's a respectable place for a consumer brand to be in. And we capture this data through various metrics. We send them WhatsApps, we send them emails, some even via SMS. We have long forms that a lot of our kind customers are very nice to sort of fill up and tell us more about it. So NPS is, of course, the overarching theme that we look at on a month-on-month basis. Other than that, there's like the basic retention revenue that you're getting at an overall basis, that if in a month there is 100 rupees of revenue that you've done, what is the percentage of revenue that's coming from your old users?
Okay. So what's that number for you?
So for us, that number is roughly about 28% today. So this is not month on month, but this is like total. Like if I'm going to do 100 rupees in revenue in February, 72 is coming from new users that I've acquired, and 28 is coming from old users who've already transacted with us. Sure. Of course, we're also in like a really high growth state. So there's a lot of new traffic that we bring via performance means and other marketing means that we do. But that's what that number looks like today. Now, beyond this, what we also have is month-on-month cohort metrics that we look at. So a user who's buying from us in February, what is his purchase behavior in March, and then April, and then May? So we have certain internal targets that we look at from an M3, M6, M9, and M12 point of view. Yeah, I think largely within the team, these are the retention metrics that we track, and we're able to get a good sense whether things.
And are you seeing, let's say for your repeat customers, are you seeing average order value going up in terms of they trying more categories, more SKUs? Are you seeing that trend?
So very interestingly, we initially started with an electric toothbrush.
Okay.
So like very early days, our average order value was quite high. It was 2,000, north of 2,000. What we're now seeing is that if a customer who had earlier transacted, say, with the electric toothbrush is now, say, buying packs of a toothpaste or buying packs of mouthwashes, I wouldn't necessarily say that the AOV is going up.
Okay.
The lifetime value, the LTV, we pick up all the retention percentages, average it out, and we use the formula multiplying it with our contribution margin one to figure out what is it that we'll actually get from a customer after we've paid for the product and other channel commissions. So that LTV is definitely trending up to today, where the LTV to our CAC ratio is about 3:1. This is up till Jan numbers. So that's what that's looking like.
I think the other thing that I want to deep dive into is to understand on the channel spread, right? Because I think that's something that I've been talking to a lot of D2C founders. Because most of us start as a digital brand, right? Because that's the core of D2C, right? But I think in COVID also, I think we all realized that digital is the way to go. But I think after COVID, we realized that, you can't escape the offline channel, right? And within digital also, there are multiple channels. I think most of us get stuck only with email, SMS, right? So how are you building this entire omni-channel, right? Because the customer might discover offline and buy online, or vice versa, right? So you need to be reach out to the customer on both the fronts. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, and I think going back to the point number one, when it started around profitability, so very interestingly, Vinita Singh from Sugar, and I've heard a couple of times, and even personally when we met her, she told us this, that when they started out, they were working with Nykaa. And Nykaa was the one doing all the heavy lifting of educating the customers and getting the products across, and whatever, they would make a lot of profits from there and then plow that back into their content engine or their channel acquisition. So I think very interestingly how omni-channel can also pan out and people can look at it is that it can also help you get more profitable. It's not necessary that website will be the most profitable channel. We've been able to get started and do fairly well on channels like Amazon, channels like Nykaa. Now, of course, QuickCom is all the boom, so places like Zepto, Blinkit. And before we go to the offline world, some of these channels, they have good payment terms. Like you can rely on them that, as a business, the cash flows are sort of going to be maintained. And like when I look at QuickCom, and we all heard stories of people saying that the first generation or the first leg of D2C brands, they used to operate on Amazon, Flipkart with amazing ROIs. I think for the next 3 to 6 months, a lot of D2C brands will see that sort of leapfrogging within the QuickCom world because it's just getting built out and new customers sort of coming. So yeah, I mean, just answering that the omni-channel piece from everything else, it's also great to sort of diversify because you cannot solve for access or reach for the customer if you're not omni-channel. Like, for example, I am a customer who would love to sort of get a product if I can get it in 10 minutes versus somebody else who might be like, okay, I'm going to get a 20% deal, but I'm okay to wait for 2 to 3 days versus a third customer who's probably just browsing at a modern trade store or is checking out at the pharmacy and sees like a nice, beautiful countertop unit and sees your product and he's like, okay, it looks good, let me pick it up and try it. So the more reach you have, you're reaching your customer more closely because India has like so many different type of customers and they have different ways of buying, and you want to be available at all of those to like maximize your chances of getting reach and getting success.
And so one thing that always, I wonder is that, with so much of digital communication that is happening by D2C, by your large players, etc., right? How do you ensure you get that mind share, right? So I'm getting, let's say, 150 push notification every day, right? From different brands for different proposition. So as a brand, how do you actually get that mind share from the user? Because you have only those 2 seconds when she's just reading your push notification and just swiping it off, right? Yeah. Or going to the website and buying, right? So how do you create that mind share in those 2 seconds?
Great. So what will happen in those 2 seconds is a backstory of what has happened in a lot of previous conversations. It could be an email, it could be an WhatsApp, it could be an offline conversation or an interaction that somebody from the brand had. So the way we are building Perfora, my co-founder Jatan is a very heart-to-heart person, loves writing out his stories, loves writing long emails to the level that he's inculcated a habit within the entire team that eventually we're building for oral care, but I mean, it's not that everybody wants to know that, okay, this is what my product is, or there's like more to the brand. There are people to the brand, there is struggle to the brand, there is fun to the brand. And how do you bring it out? So we write Sunday newsletters uh, great open rates, great interaction rate. Like we all wake up on Monday with like 20, 25 emails just to respond to customers. So works very well both ways. One is it's great for the customer, they're interacting with us. It's great for the team member who writes that newsletter because he's so motivated now to like really, put it out. So that is the reason I bring that up is because that is the tone of the brand. We're building a brand, but there's a strong personification and identity to the brand where we want people to sort of relate to the cause, to sort of relate to the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. Now, when this is done, similarly, when we're sending out a push notification or we're sending out like a WhatsApp message, it's also very important to know that there's a very thin line. So, we are very clear that we're not going to send more than 3 to 4 WhatsApps in a month because then you're intruding. But again, it goes with the tone language and the tonality of the brand because that's how we're sort of building it, and people like that consistency to be there to a level where they're like, okay, if this is happening, like how can Perfora sort of do this? So yeah, what happens in that one specific piece, from a mindshare perspective, is a function of what we're doing on our social media, what are we doing on our email communication, what are some of the lives or videos that we're putting out. So all of that sort of ties it together, and as a brand, we try to keep it as consistent and as authentic as we can.
So I think your PMF in the initial days has worked out well, right? Because of the kind of growth you've seen in the last 18 odd months, right? But how important is voice of customer while you're evolving your product in the second phase, right? How are you capturing that, right? One obviously is you're getting those emails, you're talking to customers, right? But while you're scaling at this stage, how will you ensure the voice of customer is getting captured while you are evolving on your product?
So one, of course, you mentioned that there are 150 plus calls that go out from the team every month to customers just to sort of try and capture from them why is it that they bought a toothpaste or why is it that they're using this particular product. So all of that definitely happens to understand what is it that the customer wants, to the extent that when we did our initial Unwind and Awake toothpaste, like a big theme that came back was that this is slightly expensive for us, which is when we went back to the drawing board, did the dream range, which is probably, if the earlier one was 2.5x of say the market standard, now we're at operating at a 1.3, 1.4x. So still sort of much more affordable. So keeping that, and then there are a lot of avenues that people use to sort of tell you very pointed feedback. So we use Looks on our website to sort of collect direct customer reviews. Of course, Amazon's a great place if you're sort of selling there to sort of pick up what is it that, because that's actually brutally honest, right? And I think in India, Amazon, more often than not, people will come back with negative feedback. If you have a positive feedback, you would might not necessarily reinforce it, but if you have something negative to say, you will definitely sort of put it out. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've been able to answer your question, but like all of these calls, capturing data is everything that we do, and we follow it very closely. So I think PMF internally, how we look at it is if we've done sort of 700 plus products of that, and if the customer rating is like a 3.8 to 4 out of 5, we were like happy that we can sort of go forward with this. And in our journey, we've also had to kill a few products. So already, like in a small journey, we've already had to kill a few products. So yeah.
And the other thing which I think for early age entrepreneurs is always that, how should I build my team, right? So it's very tempting to, suddenly start hiring for each and every function, right? But if I talk specifically on, let's say, marketing, right? So there's a marketing, there's a product, there's a tech, right? These three becomes an important, obviously, category, something which will work independently. But so how do you structure your team within, let's say, performance, retention, and then, your own D2C website? So what are your thoughts on, team effort and alignment, and especially at this stage when you're going to hyperscale suddenly, right, with the validation coming from the sharks?
So on team building, really early on, we've been lucky to have like a good set of people, and at least for the longest time, like the first 6 months of operation, there were just 4 people. There was Jatan, me, Drishti, and Raghav. And the reason we were able to get them on board is like we're very candid and honest in our communication with our potential hires that, look, this is going to be a tough ride. Like there has to be sort of a different mind frame. If you have the normal, I mean, if you have the other mind frame that, you want certain balance, which is great, like that's great. But then that alignment has to be there, that you have to probably look somewhere else for that. So A, that alignment definitely happens, and then it's also validating when people sort of buy into it. But other than that, when we look at, the split between performance and the website and also retention, So we have Drishti, who leads the entire D2C piece, and then within her we have somebody who sort of strongly helps her focus on the retention piece. We have again helped to manage the overall performance marketing piece, so that the revenue side sort of gets sorted there. But overall now we're about say 22 odd people, but the main theme has been that we're doing something exciting. We definitely believe that we have founders within the team to the extent that once every month, every Saturday we do like founder sessions. So we've hosted Sule for one of those. We hosted Arman for Sleepy Owl for one of those. We had like the Master Chow guys. So the idea is that there's a lot of fun, or there's a lot of rigor that goes in, while building. And when you hear it from somebody who's been doing it for 4 or 5 years, you can literally see the passion dripping. And when the team sees that, it sort of just finalizes all of that.
So we'll just close on this, just final thing, now that you've announced on mainstream media that you're building the Colgate of India. So what are your closing thoughts? How are you looking at next 18, 24 months for Perfora? Yeah, we'll just close on that.
Very exciting next 18, 24 months. Yeah, I think we've sort of set the ball rolling to the idea now. And a lot of like post-hearing we've received, I think, which is one also the mindshare piece. We are in a category where there's nothing happening. Like if there were, nothing against somebody, but if there were, say, 50 ads that I would see from a skincare brand, it's hard to remember because they're all doing great things, but there's just so many of them. Versus if you see an ad from Perfora, you're like, okay, there was one oral care brand, okay, sort of. So, so mindshare sort of stays there. But second, I think primarily more channel diversification. Website is again doing wonders for us thanks to Shark Tank, but the idea is that how do we go deeper into quick com? How do we go deeper with our channel partners? We're doing a small test pilot within Delhi NCR in about 150 stores. Pharmacies as a avenue of sales is working out great for us. So yeah, I think next 18, 24 months is going to be that shift or that maturity that we see for a D2C brand where offline and omni-channel becomes a lot more important with the key focus on customer and retention and the happiness. Profitability, of course.
Thanks, Tushar. It was lovely talking to you, and I'm sure the audience would love to interact more with you to understand your journey so far. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Surbhi. Great chat.